Good morning, everyone, and Happy New Year to you all. Welcome back to season two of Tay Talks Positivity. This is your girl, Tay, ready to help you get your week started with some positive vibes and good energy. I want to start this season off by, of course, wishing everybody a happy and prosperous new year. I hope you all had a great holiday season. For me, the holidays were a little bit different this year, but still enjoyed myself very much. On Thanksgiving, I was able to spend some time with my grandma. She's my only living grandparent, and I hadn't spent a Thanksgiving with her in years. So it was a great surprise, and I was so happy to be able to have that time with her while she was visiting from Maryland. So, Grandma Patsy, I love you. As I was sitting down and trying to get back into the groove of preparing the content and coming up with topics that I wanted to go over this season, I put a sticky note on the desktop of my MacBook and just started typing out a few different things that popped in my head. One of the topics that I thought of is, of course, what we're going to talk about this weekend. I want to touch base on accountability. Now, when I wrote out the list of topics, they were, of course, in no particular order. So when I decided which topic I was going to cover for this week, I usually sit down and I pray for God to reveal to me what He wants me to talk about. Or I try to wait for signs around me that will lead me in the right direction. While I was typing out the layout for another topic that was on my list, I was watching TV and getting caught up on my Married to Medicine. And when the girls started talking about one of the members of the group not taking accountability for what they did to cause the fallout in the friend's relationship with the rest of their castmates. In my head, I was like, maybe this is a sign. But since I was already working on something different, I stuck it out and I continued to work on what I was already working on. Then, after I finished watching that episode of Married to Medicine, I turned on the episode that I had missed of The Real Housewives of Potomac. And as I'm sure you can all guess, the women on the show were talking about one of the women in the group needed to take accountability for the things that they said. Now, at this point, I knew that God in the universe was trying to tell me that I needed to speak on that topic before the one I had already started working on. When I look at the dictionary for the definition of the word accountability, it says the act of being accountable. Like most things, it gives you the word to define the word. So I went back into the dictionary and I looked up the meaning of the word accountable, which means required or expected to justify actions or decisions. And I don't know if you all remember the story about how my two best friends from high school and how we no longer talk anymore. For the sake of anonymity, I'm going to call one of them Dom and the other one Tim. One day while I was at work, and this just happened recently, not too long ago, um, I got a call from Dom. Keep in mind, we hadn't talked to each other in a little while, over a year. But I picked up the phone to see how and where the conversation was going to go. And as expected, one of the first things he said was how he missed me and wanted to call and check on me because I don't call and check on anybody, and that I won't call anybody unless they call me. Now, I'm not going to lie. That comment slightly activated me because, for one, I got tired of hearing it. And for two, I was sick of them using it against me as if I had honestly done something wrong. But during the quick conversation that I had with him that day, he told me that he wanted to try to rebuild our friendship if it was something that I was interested in. We then talked for a while, catching up on what had been going on in our lives recently. Then I told him I would have to call him back because my mom was calling. And he ended up calling me back a few days later, and we talked again. And this time he mentioned our other friend, Tim, and was telling me how Tim was going through some medical issues and how he was hoping that the both of us would be willing to talk to each other and try to rekindle the friendship that we no longer had with one another. Now, at first, I really didn't acknowledge what he was saying when he was talking about him going through what he was going through, but then I didn't want to seem cruel or non empathetic and simply just told him I'm sorry to hear he was going through that. Fast forward a couple weeks later, I decided, you know what? I'll pick up the phone and call him. He's on my mind. Let me call him just to see how he's doing and what he got going on. So I called Dom. I had saw on Facebook that he had a death in his family and had reached out to him via text message, but never got a response from him. But we sat and talked to each other on the phone for a while about what we both had going on and some of the things that had transpired since the last time we talked to each other. I don't remember exactly how we ended up on the topic yet again on how I stopped picking up the phone when they called or how I just never picked up the phone to call them, period. He said to me that back then, when everything happened, it seemed like once I got into a relationship, it was like I didn't need them anymore, or I just tossed them to the side and pretty much said, fuck them. Now, usually at this point, I would have gotten on the defense and started to be combative back and forth, bantering about who did what and who was responsible for the friendships being where they are now, which were both pretty much non existent at this point. But for some reason, I let him say what it was he had to say and explain to me how he honestly felt things went down for him during our fallout. Once he was done for the first time, I could actually see where he was coming from. And in that moment, I knew I had to own up to the things that I did that contributed to us not speaking to each other for so long. I should have communicated with them more about what was going on in my life instead of just not reaching out to them and feeling like I had to keep things to myself. And just because I knew that I didn't want to do some things that I did before I had gotten into a relationship, that didn't mean that I had to cut them off from my life completely. When it all came down to it, I should have used better communication and let them know exactly that. He also told me that the same could have been said on his part, and that looking back on it now, he realized that me pulling away was not me acting shady towards them, and that he can now say that I was growing up into my adulthood or maturing faster than he felt they were during that time. Out of all the conversations we have ever had over the years about the same thing, this time was the first time that the both of us actually had a talk and not blame the other for what went wrong in our friendship. We both sat and took accountability for what it was that we did or the things that we may have said and the things that we could have said or did different. We actually were both able to get to a place where we both are willing to do what we had to do to try to mend our friendship. And of course, he brung up the idea of me and Tim possibly talking to each other and trying to hash things out. I don't know why he keeps pushing for us to talk and try to fix things, but he does. Then he proceeds to tell me that he talked to Tim and that Tim said that he was willing to have a conversation with me, but only if I plan on being consistent when it comes to keeping in touch. I'm not even going to lie, but I had to catch myself before I said what I was about to say because I was caught off guard with how he was giving me an ultimatum when it came to us talking, when the conversation wasn't something that I was asking for in the first place. After I took a second to take in what Dom had just told me, I told him and I kept it real with him. To be honest, I don't know if I really want to talk to him because even after he first said that he didn't want anything to do with me anymore, I still reached out and tried to fix things just for him to basically spit in my face and tell me, fuck you. At this point, I feel like the ball is no longer in his court for him to say how things should go. He made sure he had the final say in how things ended. So if the day ever does come when I feel like I want to try to mend anything with him, it will be on my time and on my terms, not his. And I made sure I let Dom know exactly how I felt by telling him exactly that. I can already tell you if there were to be a conversation between Tim and I can almost guarantee, or rather, let me say, assume, since I can't actually guarantee how another person is going to be, but I feel like he wouldn't hold himself accountable for the things that he did or said, or say there's anything he should have or could have done differently. And having that feeling makes me not want to talk to him. And I don't plan to have any conversations with him unless I get to a place where I feel like I actually want to. I'm not going to do this for anybody else but myself. And at this very moment, I have no want or desire to talk to him or try to hash things out with him right now. Some people may think that's me being selfish, but you want to know something? I count that as self care because I have no problem taking accountability for things that I've done, but I also have learned that sometimes my emotions and my feelings and how I feel about things should come first as well. While he's trying to give me an ultimatum, you can hold on to your ultimatum because this isn't something I'm asking for myself. Now, both of these conversations happened like I want to say somewhere in between Christmas and Thanksgiving, somewhere definitely before Christmas. But since then, I picked up the phone and reached out to Dom on more than one occasion. The first time we talked for a bit and he told me that he would call me back. I'm like, all right, cool, fine. And of course, life happens and things, you get preoccupied and stuff. I mean, I understand it. I'm a definite guilty party of life happening and you go to do something, your intentions are there to call, And sometimes you just get busy doing something else. I've done it on plenty of occasions, even with me reaching out and checking on my mom during the day. It happens. But I reached out and called him again and no answer. I'm like, all right, it is what it is. And then I reached out and called him again. He answered the phone. Hey, I'm at work. Can't talk right now. And he would call me back. We are now in 2024. So about maybe a month or so ago. And I still have yet to have gotten a phone call back. Funny enough, I'm not mad at the fact that he hasn't called me back. To me, it just kind of proves the point that me not reaching out to them or picking up every time they call was just an excuse for something else. And again, to me, it just proved my point. If I had to give an affirmation for this week's topic, it would be I'm accountable for what I say and do and what I allow others to put me through. The reason I say and what I allow others to put me through is because there are some cases that we allow the actions and words of others to have more an effect on us than we should. People can say and do whatever they want to do, but if there are some instances where we give their words and actions more power than they would have if we had shut the shit down from jump. While I'm not taking accountability for the things that they may say or do, I do take accountability for how I let those things affect me. Now, the goal that I'm going to set for myself, the first goal of the year, is going to be an ongoing goal for me to learn how to hold myself accountable for things that I do and the things that I don't do that may cause delays in the things that I'm trying to accomplish and the blessings that God has for me. As people, sometimes we tend to look for other people or circumstances that may occur to place the blame on when we don't have or get the things that we want. Or we tend to try to justify the things that we may or may not do. I hope that you all will set a goal for yourselves that you wish to achieve this week. Whether it's a long term or short term goal, get your plan together so that you can reach that goal. And remember, sometimes you got to make a little small goal in order to get to that bigger goal. As always, I want to thank you all for tuning in and listening to this week's episode of Tay Talks Positivity. I appreciate everyone that takes the time to listen to the podcast every week. I hope that each of you are able to do something from these talks or take something from these talks each week and apply it to your own day to day lives. I hope you all have a week full of good vibes and amazing positivity. And if there's something or someone negative that comes along and tries to bring you down, just try your best to not let it and let your aura of positivity shine bright. Because you never know, somebody out there may be able to benefit from the positive energy that you give off. Again, Happy New Year to you all. Let's start this year off positive. Positive things are going to happen. I can feel it. This is your girl Tay. Until next week, remember, affirm it, apply it, and achieve it.